Hello, so today I am going to teach my wonderful roommate Shelby a little bit about Romeo and Juliet and Petrarchan lovers by using Shakespeare in bits. So Shelby, go ahead and introduce yourself. You can say your year, your major, and explain a little bit about your background in Shakespeare, what you know about Shakespeare, difficulties you had reading Shakespeare, and anything you know about Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, I'm Shelby. I am a senior. I'm a youth major. And I don't know that much about Romeo and Juliet or Shakespeare in general. I don't think I really studied it in high school, and so I don't really remember that much.
That's okay, because today I'm going to teach you a very fun way that you can learn Romeo and Juliet. And Shelby was homeschooled, so actually, if your mom had been interested, she could have purchased this program for $15 online, and she could have taught you using Shakespeare in bits, like we're going to do today. One thing that I love about this program, about the class I'm taking right now, and about what we're going to talk about today, is that even though Romeo and Juliet was written hundreds of years ago, there are still themes in the play that we can relate to, especially as college students, especially as female college students, and especially as single female college students. So, before we begin, I just want to talk a little bit about, this idea of love. Often, maybe not necessarily for us, but let's picture right now a young freshman couple on campus and the girl's idea of love. What might be some things that this girl wants a guy to say to her, a guy to act? Or what is this girl looking for? And what often do people associate with Romeo and Juliet?
I think girls often want to be romanced and pursued and have a boy just fawn over them. And someone who just holds them to a high standard.
Yeah, holds them to a high standard. Yeah, girls get very flattered by compliments, and often, especially freshman girls, if a guy comes up and starts complimenting their hair, their eyes, if he were to do something like that, then she will probably fall in love with him. So, do you know, you said you don't have that much background, but do you know anything about the story of Romeo and Juliet? Like what happens, their relationship?
I know that they fall in love, and it's forbidden love, and then that they die, but I don't know much else.
Okay, so would you say, just one more question before we begin, if you think about what you know about Romeo and Juliet, would you assume that this is a great story about true love, or would you say it might be maybe not true love, or how have you perceived that in the past?
I think that we're taught that it's supposed to be about true love, but I'm not sure I believe that.
You're not sure you believe that? All right, great. Well, then this is a great lesson for us today. So I'm going to give you a graphic organizer called a KWL chart to use as we go through today. So you've already vocalized some of this, so you don't need to necessarily write down, but this is just to help you organize your thoughts into what you know before we begin, what you want to know about Romeo and Juliet, and especially about Petrarchan lovers, and this, what is that, this idea of this odd word. And then at the end we can talk about what you learned. So I'm going to give you that if you want to fill things in as we go along. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit about Shakespeare in bits. This is the program that we're going to use today. And basically this is a wonderful tool for students. I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can go scene by scene and not only watch the scene unfurling before your eyes and listen to it because they have a cast that reads it, but also read along on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and play the first part of the play. This is Act 1, the prologue. So it's going to give you, the reader and learner today, a bit of a background, and you're also going to see how the program works. So we're going to go ahead and watch this here.
and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end, not good for more, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage, and which, if you will patiently ascertain, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to win.
Alright, so you can go, as I said, act by act, scene by scene through the entire play, and this program will have little figures that act out the scenes and say the scenes, and they also have the lines on the side. Now, what do you see over here? Do you have any questions about maybe what these little symbols could be?
Is that who's reading them?
No, but that was a great guess. So what these are on the side, this L stands for language and H stands for history. And these little tabs are ways for you to understand better what you're reading. So they might tell you about the language that is used. So this explains that the prologue is in the form of a Shakespearean sonnet. And underneath where it says history, it explains, it gives the background, where the play is set, and a little bit more about the history of Shakespeare's plays. So if you are reading this for the first time and have trouble understanding the language, or if you have students who have trouble understanding what's going on, or different themes that are throughout the play, they can click on these tabs as they read along, and it is sort of a study guide to use as you go along through the play. So as we talk about Romeo as a Petrarchan lover, we will go ahead and use some of these tabs. So, okay, I've been using this word a lot, Petrarchan lover. You're probably wondering what the heck that is. So I'm going to go ahead and explain this to you. And Petrarchan poetry was a type of poetry used in Shakespeare's time, and it often had a lover, the Petrarchan lover, who had an unrequited love for some unattainable woman. So this would be a woman maybe he saw from across the way and fell in love with, and he would praise her hair, her skin, her being, her personality, but she was unattainable. He never actually could reach her. So he was in love with love and would fawn over her, like you were saying earlier about the whole freshman love scenario, but he would never actually get to know her or attain her. So if you flip over your graphic organizer here, I have written down, go ahead and show it, three I's that we can use when talking about Petrarchan poetry. The first I stands for idealizes. So a Petrarchan lover will idealize his woman. He's in love with an ideal, the idea of love, and his emotions can create an ideal image of a perfect, unattainable woman. So that's the first I. Do you want to read the second I that I have here?
Idealizes.
Oh, try again.
Oh. Idolizes.
Yes.
Yeah. Turns lover into an idol, puts her on a pedestal, worships her, uses religious language to describe her. Lover associated with a goddess.
So we have that a Petrarchan lover idealizes his woman, he idolizes his woman, and also the last word is infatuation. So the Petrarchan lover will declare his love without really knowing her. He's in love with a longing. He's caught up in the chase of chasing after her, and he's in love with love itself. So we're going to go ahead and move ahead in the play, and we're going to zoom in on the character Romeo, because this is a great love story, so Romeo has to be the great lover, right? So we're going to take a look at some words that he uses to describe his lover, Rosaline, and I want you to try to see if you can find any words in here that may demonstrate any of those three I's. And let me know if you have any questions. As I said, it's obviously in Elizabethan English, so the language is not similar to what we would hear today, but there are a lot of themes in here that we may hear today still. So this is Romeo's talking to his friend Benvolio, and he is describing a woman, Rosaline.
I ain't so near, and I suppose you know.
A right good markman. And she's fair, I love.
A right fair mark, there, cuz, is soonest hit.
Well, in that case, you miss your knowledge. Sarah, she hath Diane's wit, and in strong proof of chastity, well armed from love's weak childish bow, she lives uncharmed. She will not stay the siege of loving terms, nor by the encounter of assailing eyes, nor overlap the sense of using comes. Oh, she is rich in beauty, only poor, that when she dies with beauty dies her store.
Then she hath sworn that she will still live chaste.
She hath, in that sparing, makes huge waste for beauty, starved with her severity, cuts beauty off from all posterity. She is too fair, too wise, wisely too fair to merit bliss by making me despair. She hath forsworn to love, and in that vow do I live dead, but live to tell it now.
Alright, were you able to pick up any things he was saying or describing about her that made it seem like he was fawning over her or in love with the idea of her but not necessarily her herself?
Yeah, I think that he kept saying, like bringing up the point of how pure she was. And so I think that that's, like, an ideal that a lot of times we, like, want. And so I think, like, maybe that idea of, like, she's pure and sweet, and so maybe that has something to do with it.
Definitely, and he uses some strong language. We're going to go ahead and click on, do you want to go ahead and click on that history tab right there? And do you want to read that out loud?
Cupid is the Roman god of love. Diane, or Diana, is the Roman goddess of the hunt and is associated with chastity. Both are commonly depicted with bows and arrows.
So he's using some ancient allusions to gods and goddesses that had to deal with love or the hunt. And so we know that if Diane is associated with chastity and also the goddess of the hunt, that would mean, like, that same unattainable, he's chasing after her but can't quite get her. And yes, it does sound like she's pure. It sounds like he's alluding in here that she won't sleep with him, which makes her more unattainable. So he's watching her and wanting to conquer her. And yep, does it sound like he knows her personality well and is in love with the way that she actually is, or what would you think?
It doesn't sound like he knows her that well at all.
Right. It doesn't sound like he knows her. So would you say that what we've just talked about now maybe portrays that he's a Petrarchan lover?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's more in love with the idea of love than in Rosalind herself. So I'm going to skip ahead. We are moving along quickly here on time. So I'm going to skip ahead to a scene when Romeo first sees Juliet. So we know from the prologue and probably from what you've heard in the past that they end up falling in love. But when he first sees her, I want to take a look at her words and see if we think that if he's in love with her because he knows her well or because of what he sees. So let's listen in.
What lady is that, which doth enrich the hand of yonder knight? I know not. Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright. It seems she hangs upon the cheek of night as a rich jewel in an Ethiop's ear. Beauty too rich for use, for earth too dear. So shows a snowy dove trooping with crows, as yonder lady all her fellow shows. The measure done, I'll watch her place of stand, and touching hers, make blessed my wound hand. Did my heart love till now, forswear its sight, for I ne'er saw true beauty till this night.
Alright, so the great lover, Romeo, sees his great love, Juliet, for the first time, and what maybe are some imagery that he uses, or what are some words he uses to describe Juliet?
Well, he talks about her like a snowy dove. Beauty too rich for use. He kind of describes her as like a light in the room. It's all very like physical and all like what she looks like and what she's doing.
Yes, definitely. And that's very interesting that you use the image of light, because light and darkness are used a lot in this play, and especially with these two lovers, but we're not going to get into that now. But yes, so once again, when he first sees her, the words that he uses to describe her do not make it seem like he loves her because he gets to know her, spends time with her, but because he sees her and is charmed by her beauty. So we're going to move into application, because a great way to comprehend what you've read and what you've learned is to make connections between your own life, to make connections to the text, and to make connections to the world around you. So can you think of any songs or TV shows or movies in which this same Petrarchan lover is portrayed?
I can think of a lot of ideas of it in our society or in our like media culture, but I can't think of specific songs or movies. They don't like come to my mind, but I know that like most of the movies, people are drawn to each other by like love at first sight or or a look or something.
I wrote down some lines. This is from the song "It Girl" by Jason Derulo. In it, Jason Derulo says, "I've been looking under rocks and breaking locks, just trying to find ya. I've been like a maniac, insomniac, 5 steps behind ya," and goes on to describe that this girl that he can't actually get is his it girl. So it's interesting that hundreds of years later, on the radio, we can hear examples of Petrarchan lovers praising their unattainable love.